This morning, an NYPD officer was shot 3 times. It happened last night while responding to a call in Bed-Stuy. That officer is expected to survive, and the police have a suspect in custody right now. We'll turn things over to Fox 5's Robert Moses. He is live at Kings County Hospital in East Flatbush with more details on this. Robert, what can you tell us this morning?
Well, Bianca, we could be standing here telling you a much different story than the one that we're telling this morning. This officer is very lucky to be alive. Both the suspect and the officer here at Kings County Hospital this morning. Sources tell me that the officer has been on the force since April of 2017. Sources say that he is 28 years old. He's married. He lives on Long Island. And yes, he is alive this morning thanks to his bulletproof vest. A bullet pierced the back of that vest, and the bullet got stopped in its tracks. Police say the officer was also hit in his right leg and buttocks, so 3 times in total. A gun was recovered at the scene. Here's what led up to the shooting. Cops say that last night at about 11:11, they got a report of shots fired near the intersection of Madison and Broadway. That's in Bushwick. Police reviewed video of that scene, which shows a man running up to an SUV stopped at a red light, and then that man starts firing at 3 other men inside, all of whom are known gang members. One of those men inside was killed. The SUV then crashed a short distance later. About 5 blocks away, 2 police officers and a sergeant in uniform riding together in an unmarked car came upon a man walking quickly and acting suspiciously. Those officers stopped him. He immediately pulled out a gun and started firing. Officers returned fire. They shot 21 times, according to police. The suspect was hit once and taken into custody. Now, at this hour, officers are investigating whether he is responsible for that first shooting I told you about into that since-crashed SUV. Police Commissioner Dermot Shea spoke about the injured officer just a short time ago.
It's by the grace of God that we are not about to start planning for a second funeral in 1 month. He's in surprisingly good spirits, thankful to be alive. I think when you take a look at that vest and you see quickly what the alternatives could be, which is very, very thankful tonight. But we're expecting a full recovery.
And that's the good news. Here is a look at the suspect. Law enforcement sources identify him to me as Boyce Hayward. Again, Boyce Hayward is his name. Police say that he is known to be a gang member, and again, they're working to link him to that initial shooting as well at Madison and Broadway in Bushwick that led to the crash of that SUV. All of this really shows, police say, the dangers of gang activity in this particular part of Brooklyn. That's what led up to this whole thing, and police fear that we could be in for a bloody summer. Live at Kings County Hospital this morning. Bianca, back to you.
Wishing the officer a very swift recovery. Robert, thank you for being on top of that.
A police officer is recovering this morning at a Brooklyn hospital. He and another officer were involved in a shooting overnight. They were on patrol in this area when gunfire erupted. Here's some context on this. Gun violence in the city has spiked recently. As of May 9th, there had been 451 shootings recorded in the city in 2021 compared to 242 at this point last year, an 86% increase. Lindsay Tuckman's back with us from the scene of the shooting. Good morning again, Lindsay.
Hey there, Pat. Yeah, police are now closely looking into whether that shooting that involved the officer and happened right behind me here was connected to another shooting that happened just minutes before. We're here on the scene right now where that second shooting happened, and it's still active with police investigating at the intersection of Macon Street and Howard Avenue. Several roads are still closed leading up to that area as investigators comb the scene. This is where police say a man and several officers exchanged gunfire late last night. And according to NYPD, the man they say shot at the officers was a known gang member. Sources say the 26-year-old name is Boyce Hayward. He was apprehended at the scene, and a gun was recovered from the shooting. Now, here's what we are told happened leading up to all of that. Late last night, 2 police officers and a sergeant in uniform were on patrol in an unmarked car together. Then at 11:11 p.m., police say near Madison and Broadway, which is about 4 or 5 blocks away from where we are now, there were reports of shots fired. Officials say video at that scene shows a white SUV with 3 men inside, and then another man runs up to the car and fires shots into it. 5 shell casings were found there. That SUV crashed a short time later, and police found one of the people inside to be dead. One was injured by gunshots and one was uninjured. All 3 of those men, police say, have an extensive arrest history and are gang members with open gun cases. Then, police say approximately 4 minutes later, that unmarked car with the 2 officers and sergeant inside see a man walking, quote, briskly on the side of Saratoga Park, and he was hiding a part of his body. When police stopped to investigate, they say the man pulled out a gun, turned on the officers, and shot. The sergeant in the car does not fire his gun, police say, but one of the officers fired off 12 rounds, another one fired off 9 rounds, and that was the one that was hit by gunshots. Police say he was hit 3 times, once in his vest, once in his right leg, and then a 3rd shot in his buttocks. The suspect was shot 1 time also in the leg. Now, officials held a press conference at Kings County Hospital early this morning where that officer is recovering. Here's Mayor de Blasio.
This is an example of extraordinary bravery. Here are officers in a situation where they see someone acting suspiciously, and they go and do what we depend on them to do every single day and protect their fellow New Yorkers. And they do it with courage and bravery. And they put themselves in harm's way. But they did exactly the right thing because, in fact, this individual had done, from everything we are seeing at this moment, had done harm and would have done more harm, and then turned on our officers.
Again, the investigation into both of those shootings last night are still underway, and charges are still pending at the moment. The officer that was involved, we're told, is still in the hospital, is doing well, and is expected to recover. Pat?
Speaking overnight as concerns rise that this was the latest in a string of gang violence, which authorities say could have been averted. And a very good morning on this Thursday, May 13th. I'm Ken Rosado. Shirley Malakott's here as well, and we're going to get right into our team coverage of the story. We begin with Eyewitness News reporter Derek Waller live in Bed-Stuy. Derek?
Ken, a dramatic shootout overnight between the cops and what they're calling a known gang member overnight here in Bed-Stuy. Take a look down the block, and you can see that there are police still on the scene here this morning at the intersection of Howard Avenue and Macon Street. Right now, the suspect and a police officer are both in the hospital. And this is the scene shortly before midnight after cops patrolling the area noticed a 26-year-old man they had been trying to find. Once they got out of their unmarked cruiser near Saratoga Park, police say the suspect started shooting. Cops returned fire close to 24 rounds. They shot the suspect in the leg, and he was hospitalized. Charges are now pending. The 28-year-old officer, who's been with the NYPD for just 4 years, was shot 3 times. One of those bullets hit his vest in the back, and you can see right there on your screen just how that vest may have saved this officer's life. Mayor de Blasio and Police Commissioner Dermot Shea spoke overnight.
When you take a look at that vest, and you see quickly what the alternatives could be, which is very, very thankful.
But it's quite clear that people who have this level of devotion to their fellow New Yorkers are very special people, and thank God they will all be okay.
And here is a picture of the 9mm handgun police say they recovered from the scene. Illegal guns continue to be a major problem here in Brooklyn, and in fact, police say this suspect, whose name they have not yet released, he had an active criminal case against him, was released, waiting on a court date. Certainly some questions about that this morning. That's the latest here in Bed-Stuy. I'm Derek Waller, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Derek, thank you for that. Now let's head over to the scene of that first shooting. Candace McCowan, live in Bushwick, just a few blocks away from Derek, with more on that part of the story. Candace.
Yeah, and certainly we're here at Broadway and Madison. This is where this all supposedly began late last night, when this car that you see here, this white SUV, was actually shot into by who police believe is their suspect as well. Now you can see that car crashed into this elevated subway beam here along Broadway here at Madison. Now this is where it actually hit this pole very hard. Now, this all unfolded around 11:11 last night here on Broadway at Madison. Investigators say there's video showing a man running up to this white BMW SUV and beginning to fire into the car. There were 3 men in that vehicle. One person was not struck, another was hit by bullets and taken to the hospital, but a third, who was in the back seat, was killed. Now, I spoke to a man earlier this morning who was standing on the corner and witnessed this all unfold.
He walked over to the car and started shooting inside the car. The car pulled off and hit that van. One of the men jumped out of the car and rolled on the ground and ran towards the street. The car crashed into that pole. The driver jumped out and he tried to run. He was hopping on one leg. He fell down. That's what I told him, yo, get back in the car.
Yeah, and it sounds like the third man who was in the back seat was the one who did not survive. Police say that this was all gang involved. They are familiar with the suspects, who they say currently have open gun possession cases. Investigators expressing their frustration, saying that the courts need to be open and process these men that they have arrested in the past for previous gun cases, who were still on the street. Now, if you come through this area this morning, knowing that this scene is here at Broadway in Madison, know that there are several blocks here along Broadway that are shut down this morning, and traffic will not be able to move through until they actually clear up this crime scene, which they are still processing at this time. Live this morning here in Bushwick, I'm Candace McCowan, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
What a wild story.
Right now, the officer was rushed to Kings County Hospital. That's where today New York's Gabi Acevedo picks up our coverage. Gabi.
Darlene, the officer has not been identified by the NYPD at the moment, but he is expected to make a full recovery after listening to Commissioner Dermarche. Here's what we know. The injured officer was struck by 3 bullets, 1 to his protective vest, 1 to his right leg, and 1 to his buttocks. Police Commissioner Shea was here at Kings County Hospital at a press conference around 2:30 a.m., telling us that by the grace of God, we are not planning another funeral, Darlene, reminding us of the recent death while on duty of Highway Patrolman Anastasio Sacos. The bullet that penetrated the officer's vest on the upper left chest side near the heart has been removed from the vest and is now being analyzed in order to confirm that it matches other 9mm bullet casings found at the scene. Darlene, these images from the scene near Saratoga Park show the ambulance carrying the wounded officer to Kings County Hospital. According to the commissioner's description of the shooting incident, a sergeant plus 2 police officers saw a man walking after a previous shootout was reported. The male pulls out a firearm and then turns on the officers. The injured cop fired 9 shots, and in the exchange of gunfire, he was struck once in the vest, another round in the leg, and another in the buttocks. As I said before, he's here at Kings County Hospital, expected to make a full recovery.
I want to honor these officers for the way that they did their work tonight. It's also important to note that the strategies of the NYPD had these officers in a location because of previous activity in that area. And in fact, that was exactly where the officers needed to be to stop further violence.
Darlene, Mayor de Blasio also thanked the staff here at Kings County Hospital for taking care of the injured officer and keeping him safe after suffering multiple gunshot wounds. Reporting live from East Flatbush, Gabi Acevedo today in New York.
Gabi, thank you.
The police commissioner says it appears the cop was shot in the aftermath of a deadly fight between 2 gangs, and his bulletproof vest likely saved his life. CBS2's John Diaz joins us live from the scene in Bed-Stuy with more. John?
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Mary. Yeah, that's right. And police telling us that a 28-year-old police officer is in good spirits this morning, considering what happened to him here late last night. He is recovering as we speak right now over the hospital, expected to make a full recovery after he was shot 3 times right here behind me here on Howard Avenue in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Now, as you can see, his fellow brothers in blue continue to look into this near deadly shooting. And the investigation really has just begun. But what we can tell you this morning is that the shooting happened about 11 o'clock last night, and police were responding to a separate deadly shooting at the corner of Madison Street and Broadway in Bed-Stuy. And you're looking now live there at the scene. There, police sources say 28-year-old Robert Randall was fatally shot, and 21-year-old Malik Lucas was shot multiple times and is in critical condition. The white SUV that they were in crashed after cops say a man ran up to them while they were at a red light and started to shoot at the 3 men inside that white SUV. All are known known to the police, all three men, and have been arrested many times, believed to be in a gang. Now, a shot spotter alert informed police about that shooting. And about 4 minutes later, and 5 blocks away here at Macon Street and Howard Avenue, 2 officers and a sergeant in uniform and on patrol in an unmarked car saw a man they say was walking, quote, briskly. When they stopped to investigate, investigators say that the man immediately opened fire. Cops say audio from body camera footage shows the man did not say anything before pulling out his weapon. 2 officers returned fire. One of them was hit 3 times.
It's by the grace of God that we are not about to start planning for a second funeral in 1 month.
This is an example of extraordinary bravery. Here are officers in a situation where they see someone acting suspiciously, and they go and do what we depend on them to do every single day and protect their fellow New Yorkers.
Now here you can see that officer's bulletproof vest. The police commissioner says it very likely could have saved his life since the bullet did not penetrate it when it hit him in the back. He was also hit in his leg and backside. We know this cop is from Nassau County on Long Island. His brother is also an officer, and his dad is retired from the NYPD. Now, as for the suspect, police say that he is a 26-year-old man and a known gang member. He was shot in the leg. A live look back out here at the scene over on Howard Avenue. We're told that the suspect, he is in police custody right now as we speak over at the hospital. Charges are still pending here this morning, and police are still trying to figure out if this man, this suspect, was actually tied to that shooting involving that white SUV, and actually if he was the man who pulled the trigger in that case. Of course, keep it here on Channel 2. We'll keep you updated. But for now, we're live this morning from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. John Diaz, CBS 2 News.